All right, hey VC, I'm Jamie. Welcome back. We are back with another video, and hopefully everybody's doing okay out there. Welcome back as we continue in lockdown in southern Ontario with pretty much everything still shut down. So I haven't shown any vinyl for a little bit, so I thought I'd show some vinyl again. These are some recent finds. Pretty much everything is either curbside pickup, bought online, or at various online auctions and that sort of thing. So right off the top, I've shared this on my Instagram account. You can find me at James Cottle 519, and got a great response to this on my Instagram account. Could not believe my luck in coming across this absolute classic, The United States of America. This was this band's only album on Columbia, and I forgot that this band was fronted by a female singer, Dorothy Moskowitz. But what a terrific album. Now, the cover is not in the best shape. The album is in good shape, but the cover's got a little bit of wear and a strange little doodle on the top here of the previous owner. But what an absolute great album, and absolutely fascinating with this band that they have lead singer, bass guitarist, but they have no electric guitar or guitarist in the band. They have Joseph Bird, who plays electronic music, electronic harpsichord, organ, piano. You have Rand, who plays electric bass. You've got Gordon, who plays electric violin. So there's no actual guitarist in this band. So it does have, I mean, it's a great kind of psych album. It does have this sort of almost Baroque influence a little bit, but if you like Velvet Underground, check this out. And I've seen this presented many, many times on the VC. I'd never really had a chance to listen to it previously, so absolutely thrilled to pick this up. And I picked this up at a fairly decent price, I think, and on the great Columbia 2i label. But yeah, really, really happy to come across that one, and was thrilled to come across this. I never thought I'd find a decent Grateful Dead album. This is the Grateful Dead's debut mono copy. And yeah, just a little bit of numbering or doodling up at the top there. But now this album, the cover's in generally quite good shape, but the album is okay. It does come with its original sleeve, but the album does have a bit of a scratch on side one. It still plays through okay, but again, this is a mono copy on that classic Warner Brothers label, but with the original sleeve. But I never thought I would come across a Grateful Dead mono copy. That was, again, fairly reasonable priced, but the vinyl was not in the best of shape. But that United States of America, the vinyl is in terrific, terrific shape. Here's an album that has recently been reissued. I don't know if it was a Record Store Day reissue or not, but this is Paul Kantner and Blows Against the Empire. Now, it's interesting that it says Paul Kantner, Jefferson Starship. This is very much a Jefferson Airplane type of album, as most of Jefferson Airplane appear on this album. But Jefferson Starship, then, it was kind of the idea of, this was something different from the Jefferson Airplane, and it's interesting that the band would then incorporate Jefferson Starship later on, but it wasn't at this particular time, so this is definitely not to be confused with the Jefferson Starship or Starship album. Paul Kantner released 2 solo albums, so now I have both his solo albums, the other one, Sunflower, and yeah, so many guest stars on this one, and this does include all the goodies. So this is an OG copy, and I've seen copies where there's writing on the back in terms of who appears on this album. This one does not have that, but it is the gatefold, Paul Kantner there, and David Crosby appears on this one. So this one does have the goodies inside. So it does include the original sleeve, a nice drawing of David Crosby there. But it looks like, I'm thinking that is a later pressing in terms of the label there for RCA. But it does include the booklet as well, with some very interesting drawings. But yeah, so I don't know if the album's been replaced, because that I don't think is an original RCA label. But it does include all the goodies inside, so that's nice to see, and a really cool album. It's kind of one of those great, very much like the other Paul Kantner solo album. It's another great sort of almost lost Jefferson Airplane album. But there's so many, amazing people that perform on this album. As I mentioned, David Crosby's on here. I think Graham Nash is on here as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but of course, Grace Slick is on here. Of course. But just a great, great bunch of people all included on this one. Nice album, for sure. Okay, moving right along. How about Nancy in London? Nancy Sinatra in London. This is from, I believe, 1966, a stereo copy on Reprise. And picked this up. This was still sealed. So this hadn't been opened, I would imagine, roughly since 1966 or the late 60s. And this features the track Summer Wine, of course, produced with Lee Hazelwood. And so it was just thrilling to just open this up for, you know, the first time, and obviously a long time. So, of course, it has the original sleeve. And on the great Reprise Steamboat label. But great. I've got a soft spot for Nancy Sinatra. I've really enjoyed her albums. Okay, Four Tops, some Motown memories with the Four Tops, and this is the album Reach Out. Of course, there's Reach Out, I'll Be There, but there's a number of covers on here as is indicative of a lot of the Motown albums at this time. They do a couple of Monkees covers on here, including Last Train to Clarksville and I'm a Believer. But Bernadette is featured on this one as well, and this is a UK mono press. As you can see, it's got the classic fold over on the back here, but yeah, it's a UK mono press, and with the little sleeve and Tamla Motown. Yeah, very cool. Okay, the English Beat. I've got a real soft spot for this band. I really like that Two-Tone Records IRS label. So this is a best of the English Beat. This is what is the English Beat, of course, known as the Beat in the UK. And this, of course, has the great track Mirror in the Bathroom, which is one of those great, for me, misheard lyrics. For the longest time, I always thought that song was called Meet Her in the Bathroom, not Mirror in the Bathroom, which it's actually called. And I love their version of Tears of a Clown. Is absolutely terrific, but absolutely bizarre that they do a cover of the Andy Williams tune Can't Get Used to Losing You. But this is a Canadian press that came out in 1983, and then of course shows you the previous albums. This is like a best of, and this with the original inner sleeve. Which is quite nice, that get the IRS on your back. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but that's pretty cool. And of course on the great IRS label. Managed to pick up a couple of Richie Havens albums, and these are my first two Richie Havens albums on vinyl, both from 1971, I believe. So we're take a look at the first one, and this is on the Stormy Forest label, which is kind of cool, and I think this is through MGM Records. So we have Richie Havens and Alarm Clock. I love Richie Havens. Amazing voice, great folk guitarist, but it's almost like that psych folk approach. And this one includes his cover of Here Comes the Sun. And even though it looks like it's a live album, Here Comes the Sun is a live recording, but it's otherwise it's a studio album. But yeah, Richie Havens, what an amazing vocalist he was. And of course, the first performer at Woodstock 1969, and on the Stormy Forest label. And then the other album, I believe from the same year, is called The Blind Degree. This one maybe not quite as good as the other one, but overall still very enjoyable. Lots of covers. He does cover Fire and Rain, also Tommy, with from The Who, Pete Townsend, and he also covers Fathers and Sons, the Cat Stevens song, and Teach Your Children. Gets a little orchestrated on side 2. I really like side 1 on this one. I just like Richie Havens' approach. Maybe some of the songs are just a touch long for the style of music that he does, but, you know, it's a small quibble, but really happy to pick up some Richie Havens on vinyl. Kate Bush's first album, finally have a copy of this. Of course, The Kick Inside. Now, this is not the original album cover. This one has been reissued with various covers, including this one. This is a Canadian press. This album came out in 1977-78. And yeah, the wonderful Kate Bush, and of course her very unique vocal style for sure. But this, of course, has Wuthering Heights, which was a big one. Of course, the title track, Kick Inside. And thanking, of course, David Gilmour for rolling the ball in the beginning. And David Gilmour is credited as an executive producer on a couple of the tracks here as well. But really enjoyed listening to this. And this on the great Rainbow Capital label. Okay, how about some Mike Oatfield? Mike Oatfield, I totally forgot that he did the soundtrack to the movie The Killing Fields. And in fact, this is Mike Oatfield's only full-length movie soundtrack. Now, his music has been used in soundtracks. Of course, The Exorcist comes to mind, Tubular Bells. But this is his only full-length soundtrack, and this is on the Virgin label, of course. And quite orchestral in a lot of spots, but a joy to listen to. And usually if there's any Michael Oldfield at a decent price, I tend to grab it for sure. And this on the classic Red Virgin label. And was also able to pick up Mike Oldfield Islands. A lot of vocals on side 2 of this one, including Bonnie Tyler, sings lead vocals on the title track, Islands. And this one has the original sleeve. And on the blue Virgin label. Oh, okay. Roberto Flack, what a wonderful singer, and this an amazing album. Roberto Flack, "Killing Me Softly." Of course, that is, her signature song. I forgot that this album came out this way. I've maybe seen just later pressings or later copies. I forgot that this had this sort of die cut thing going on, and then you would file it a little bit differently. It doesn't file this way because the spine's kind of here, so it's a little different that way. So, but then the album just pops out like this, and and forgot she does a cover of the Leonard Cohen song "Suzanne" on this one, which is just a beautiful album from start to finish. And of course on the classic, or at least one of the classic Atlantic record label. Okay, how about a couple of Rick Derringer albums? This one's simply called Derringer from 1976 on Blue Sky. And Rick Derringer albums are always solid. They're just solid albums to listen to. And this one with the original sleeve. The original sleeve that unfortunately in this one's got a bit of a rip here, but it's not too bad. At least it's still in place. I have a feeling it's going to come off one of these days, but kind of a stylized label there. And that's on Columbia with Blue Sky Records. And then I've got Rick Derringer, and this is the album Face to Face. And this one, again, on Blue Sky from 1980. But yes, Rick Derringer is one of those artists. If I see his stuff and it's reasonably priced, I will definitely pick it up. And this one on Epic label, but still with the sort of Blue Sky. You can see that just there. Oh, okay, so moving right along. Now here's an album cover. If you were first looking at it, you think Mike Oldfield album, perchance, or maybe something Tangerine Dream, but this is the Edgar Winter Group, and simply called Edgar Winter Group with Rick Derringer. And great album, and featuring the great lineup with Edgar Winter, Dan Hartman on vocals, Rick Derringer, of course, and Chuck Ruff on drums. A great album, and it contains the classic picture and the classic lineup of the Edgar Winter Group. But Edgar Winter just brings so much to the table, just in terms of, just the band, the instrumentation, and this also on Blue Sky. Do like that label, Blue Sky. Okay, here's a band that I've recently been enjoying in the vinyl community. I'd never had any of their stuff on CD. The band is Head East, and these guys rock. And this is the album Get Yourself Up. I think the cover is self-explanatory on this one, but this band has got just a great sound. I really enjoyed the track Separate Ways. There was just some nice grooves happening on this album. And this came out, gosh, was this late 70s, something like that, I want to say. So I can find that here. And on A&M Records. But yeah, really enjoyed it. 1976. And simply on A&M Records. There you go. Okay, how about some more folk? How about Arlo Guthrie? This is, I want to say, his third or fourth album, Washington County. Nice variety of music on here. It's not just like straight folk. There's a nice little bluegrass influence, interesting back cover. But yeah, as I say, I don't have very much Arlo Guthrie. I have Alice's Restaurant and don't have much on vinyl, so I was pretty happy to pick this up. And I hadn't noticed initially that this does include the insert as well, which I wasn't quite expecting. But yeah, just a nice, really nice record. And it's on the Classic Reprise label. Okay, this was a thrift store find from quite some time ago, and the thrift stores in our area pretty much closed with the lockdown in southern Ontario. But as we think ahead to summer, Nat King Cole, those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer on the Capitol label. And you know, if I have a soft spot for someone like Nancy Sinatra, man, soft spot for Nat King Cole. You know, it just is absolutely wonderful, wonderful voice. Great artist. And this one did not have any sleeve, as often is the case with thrift store finds, but on the Capital Rainbow label. Okay, now here's a band I don't know very much about, but this is a Welsh band called Man. Took a chance with this. I only paid like a couple of bucks for this, and this is Welsh Connection. They got kind of a heavy, well, not completely heavy. It's kind of a proggy sound, but this was recorded in England. This is a Welsh band, and yeah, I really just enjoyed this. A lot of different influences. I'm going to have to give this one a couple more spins. But this band has recorded a lot of different albums. I think there was also some, as I recall, some jazz influences on this one as well. But I hadn't realized how much output they've got. They've got quite an extensive catalog. But if you know anything about this band, let me know, or in terms of other albums I should explore, because I was quite surprised in their discography how many albums they have released, but on the MCA label. But it's a band I don't know a lot about, but enjoyed what I heard on this first album. As I say, kind of proggy, some kind of jazzy influences as well, but you know, heavy at times. But yeah, really cool. And this is a Canadian press. This is not a UK press. There you go. Okay, how about some Rufus? We're going to get Rufusized. And this is Rufus with Shaka Khan. Really happy to come across this one. As I say, in this area, often finding some decent soul or some decent funk albums, sadly, it can be hard to find. And when I do find them, they do tend to be quite reasonably priced. But like for whatever reason, through this area, they are hard to find, but on the ABC Records label. But Shaka Khan did so many albums with Rufus, and was certainly another great one. And they also well back in the day, for sure. Okay, how about Steve Morris Band, The Introduction. So I believe this album came out after he had left Dixie Dregs, or The Dregs, but of course before hooking up with Deep Purple. So this is an all-instrumental album. Man, this, check this out. If it's online, give it a listen. This is again, fully instrumental album. You know, everybody's like on fire. Great band. I'm not familiar with the other musicians on here, but this came out in 1984 on Elektra. Again, all instrumental, so there's no vocals. That may not be your cup of tea, but worth checking out on the Elektra Musician label, which I thought was interesting as well. Okay, the singer Leroy Sibbles. This is the album Evidence, and picked this one up for a couple of bucks and not the $12 that it says on the sticker there. This is a Canadian artist, and I can't believe how many great Canadian artists appear on this album. This is a sort of a reggae style album, but my goodness, we got Bruce Cockburn appears on this album. Hugh Marsh, who's an amazing violin player. Also background vocals from B.B. Gabor and Colleen Peterson, along with Murray McLaughlin. Like, it's an interesting list of other Canadian artists featured on here. But yeah, this was really enjoyable. It's got a bit of that 80s production to it. This came out in 1982 on YYZ through A&M Records. It's got a bit of 80s production, but overall not too bad. But Canadian artists worth checking out. Leroy Sibbles, Evidence. Yeah, really enjoyed that album. Okay, pick this one up just for a couple of bucks. Dusty Springfield, Stay a While, Only Want to Be With You. Now, I had no issues in terms of listening to this album. Sounded okay, sounded fine, but it is the electronically, what is it, electronically reprocessed stereo, which always just sends a shiver down your spine sort of thing. But in terms of this kind of music, that's not very, guitar based or guitar heavy at all. Listening to it was absolutely fine, absolutely fine. And this was on the Mercury Wing label on Hi-Fi Records. So that is quite the interesting label there. But some, Stay a While, Only Want to Be With You. I really loved her sound. She had a great vocalist, Dusty Springfield. As I say, when I see reprocessed stereo, a lot of times it's so separated so badly. I didn't have a real issue listening to that particular album on that one. Okay, Steppenwolf 7. Steppenwolf, man, a band that just doesn't get the props in terms of their whole psych approach to rock and roll. I just think there's such a great psych rock element to all of their albums, and this one included. And just in terms of the presentation, just everything about it. We can tend to just again think about Born to Be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride, but again the psych influences on those tracks too. But it just seems like just about all the albums just have a wonderful sort of psych thing going on there on RCA. Okay, the band I don't really know a lot about, Michael Stanley Band. This is the album Heartland, and it's pretty much, Heartland, American rock and roll, pretty solid to listen to. Michael Stanley, of course, on lead and backing vocals, electric and acoustic guitars, also percussion as well. It does have that kind of Bruce Springsteen Heartland feel to it. Pretty solid, though, and this came out in 1980 on EMI, and I think this does include the original sleeve, as I recall. Yeah, original sleeve. It's not in the best of condition for the sleeve, but the album's good. And on the, the green EMI label, EMI America, which you don't often see. Okay, an artist that I wouldn't necessarily be picking up all the time, but I found this in a thrift store quite some time ago. Now, the cover is in awful condition. As you can see, there's quite like a watermark ringwear on it. But this is Phoebe Snow's debut album, and it is great. She really has a nice kind of bluesy acoustic feel. I mean, this album kicks off with the song Let the Good Times Roll, and it just eases into it just so nicely. It's just got a nice kind of... just a great kind of bluesy acoustic feel to it. Not necessarily the whole album, but really did enjoy this. But oh boy, the cover is not in the best of shape. And thankfully, though, even though the cover is not in the best of shape, it did include the insert, which, as you can see, is a little bit water damaged as well. But certainly enjoyed this album. And not familiar with this label, Shelter Recording Company. And there you go. This is the only Odetta album I have. Odetta in Japan, live concert recorded in Tokyo. This is folk music, certainly from at its finest from the 60s. And this, I believe, is a mono copy. This was just so reasonably priced, and I couldn't pass it up. Now, Odetta's voice might not be to everyone's liking, but really enjoyed. Finally having some Odetta in Japan. I'm gonna have to check out more of her records. I don't often see them. This is about the only one I've seen in this area. This on the RCA Victor label. But just the passion that she sings. Yeah, okay. Band Family. Here we go. This is a Family, and this is the album Bandstand, and I do love especially some of the Family albums. This one's got a little bit of ringwear, as you can see, but just the die cut to look like look like the old television here. And then it opens up like this. Now, I think some of the original covers had it was more like a television screen rather than just the cutout here. I think there was like some plastic or something like that. This one doesn't have that, but it does have the inner sleeve, which is also a specially cut inner sleeve. And I forget that John Wetton from Asia was part of the band at this point. And I should have mentioned the other day for my Uriah Heep 50 Years in Rock box set that I forgot that John Wetton was also briefly with the band. Uriah Heep, my goodness, John Wetton with Family, Uriah Heep, King Crimson, Asia, to name just a few. You know, Brand X as well. Like, he's everywhere, and this on United Artists. Now, this is a Family in terms of getting a little bit more commercial with this album, but still, it's still got a lot of proggy elements to it for sure on United Artists. Okay, how about the Ozark Mountain Daredevils? This is their debut album. The cover's got a little bit of a funny thing going on there, but otherwise plays okay. And of course, this contains the great song, If You Wanna Get to Heaven. And on A&M, just another great band, great sound. And of course on the A&M records. Okay, I bought this copy. I do have a copy of The Who's Face Dances. I've always enjoyed this album. You Better You Bet, I think, is a great tune. Maybe it's not one of their best Who albums. And of course, this is Kenny Jones replacing Keith Moon on this. But I forgot that this had a poster that was included. And so I did pick this up. This was reasonably priced, but I did pick it up because this does include the poster. So here is the inner sleeve with the lyrics. And on this one on Warner. And then this, I forgot that this did include a poster. Let's take a look at the poster. Okay. And that's going to do it for me, Jamie Cottle. Do take care. Bye-bye.